The locals that work with me are the ones that I stick with, and I work with them. And that's how you get a lot of the local help, is by interacting properly on a commercial level. Now, a lot of people poo-poo this and think that it's all about a few cents or a couple of bucks, and it's not. It's all about making relationships with people, because the relationships go much further and way beyond the task at hand. Hey, we're here in the tropics in tropical Mexico. We've traveled all over the world. We're previous homeschooling homesteaders turned into world travelers, talking about, in light of everything that's been happening the last few years, where should we go? Should we be in the US? Should we be in Mexico? Should we be in Ecuador? And we talk about all of the things that are going on in an effort to help people have a better understanding of that very picture. A lot of times being here does give you small insights, and it has to, but there are a lot of insights that you can get even without being here. There's just different ways of doing things, and we employ both methods. Surprise, surprise. But of course we investigated the place. We investigated Mexico before coming here. But nothing beats feet on the ground. If it's true that we're going abroad because well, it's getting too expensive in America, so let's go abroad. Well, what's the point of going abroad and paying the same prices? Because that's, that conversation can get boring, but that's what happens. I have 3 little mom and pop shops that I just won't go back to because they price gouging me. But I have my little methods of keeping people honest. And I do what I can to keep them honest. And just to give you an example, like I go get photocopies a lot, and I prefer to do business with mom and pops, with the locals. I like bringing my business, taking my business to the locals. I like that. I like doing business with them. It gives me the interaction with the locals that I need and that I want. And it's on a one-to-one basis. I'm dealing with the owner in most cases, or a family member. I like that. They can treat me right or they can mistreat me. Either way, at least I give it a try. In places like this that are so touristy, the touristy thing is a problem when you try to do business with the locals. I don't blame them for this, because if I was running a shop here, 9 out of 10 foreigners that walk in are probably going to be a tourist. But we're not tourists, and that makes things a little challenging, because I get what you call price gouged, also known as Gringo gouging, or Gringo pricing. And it's funny because they think that you don't know what's happening, and they're price gouging you. And there's only so much price gouging I will accept. I will allow myself to get price gouged if I just landed somewhere and need something and don't have anywhere else to go, if it's just a couple of dollars. But at the same time, I will use that interaction to inform the vendor that I'm not a tourist, and give them the opportunity to make it right the next time and establish a relationship where the pricing is proper. Now, I've done this with many vendors. I've done it with vendors in Ecuador. I always go back to them, but I go back to them requesting them to revise. And there's different ways that I do it. I'll go back. So it depends on the personalities involved, and how abrupt they are or how easygoing they are. If they're easygoing, I'll go back and say maybe something like, what's your price? Even though they've already told me the price, what's your price? And then walk out and not buy it, so they can see that I'm rejecting the price. And I might do that repeatedly. Remember that this is an exercise for me that I enjoy doing. Now, here's something I've learned about locals. If you sit around and talk to them and explain, they don't get it. They know, yeah, you're just talking, you just want a lower price, then they don't give it to you. But if you ask them how much is it and walk away, that's stronger. That's like, I just lost a customer. He asked me a price, heard the price, and walked off. So it's stronger. Not to go into that too much, just to let you know that the locals that work with me are the ones that I stick with, and I work with them. And that's how you get a lot of the local help, is by interacting properly on a commercial level. Now, a lot of people poo-poo this and think that it's all about a few cents or a couple of bucks, and it's not. It's all about making relationships with people, because the relationships go much further and way beyond the task at hand. On to the next Whopper. This is exactly what I was talking about. This says natural yogurt, but right here it says added sugar. And yeah, I'm not even going to waste my time with all this other stuff.
There's chemicals.
Yeah, and it says natural on it.
They're all like that, though. They all have added chemicals. Every single one in here.
Now, wait a minute. This one says without sugar, right? But, because I know I've...
Wait, let's see where it says without added sugar. Oh, sin is Zukar.
This says without sugar, and it says natural. Now, the fact that it says natural, and the fact that you have to say it's without sugar, you have to say it's without sugar, but you've got the label of natural. That tells you something. Let's see, where's the ingredients? Ingredients. Okay, this has got a bunch of chemicals in it. Modified mono and diglycerate, the stabilizers and all that.
Grab 3 of them, the lady.
All of the chemicals you normally see in non-natural products, and this says natural, and they waste their time with without sugar. So it's very misleading. At the very least, it's very misleading advertising, and at worst, you don't get the option of getting a real natural product. There is none. There literally is none. Really bad.
So we're at the grocery store, the big box one. There isn't any produce here, and what's here is rotting. The produce is rotting because it's so high priced, nobody's buying it.
Well,
but
show
look,
them. Right there, look at the carrots.
Look. Now,
See how bruised up they are?
who's going to buy these?
Rotting squashes.
So I'm going to turn the camera and I want you to see what's in the place of produce right now, okay?
Processed foods that make you sick.
This is the produce section at the grocery store, okay?
Big, huge 2 shelves of processed cereal.
La Vaquita? La Vaquita.
Oh, that's an interesting name. I would really like to see some real milk from La Vaquita. How about that? How about some real cream and some real butter? None of that stuff with a bunch of chemicals in it and margarine.
Honey, they don't know that their food is like that.
Well, they need to know. I think they do know. And what they need to do is start producing it. You know, if the status quo producers aren't doing the job, then, you know, introduce some competition. If you can't get it done right, do it yourself. You know, I'd love to buy fresh milk from my neighbors. I'd love to shop from my neighbors here, anywhere. And we always do, and we do that everywhere we go. We did it in Ecuador, but we do it in Mexico. But in international, you need to know, in international resort towns like Puerto Vallarta, and anywhere where the Retire Abroad media and magazine, where there's been, and even just dozens of bloggers that's being, any place that's being promoted, it's going to be assumed you're a tourist. And the problem is that the minute you show up to a mom and pop, they just price gouge you. And you know what? I don't blame them. I don't like fault them in a condemnation kind of a way for it. But it's self-defeating, because I understand the tourism part. You know, tourists are going to pay more. But I live here. I'm a resident here. I'm not a tourist, but it's assumed I'm a tourist, and they price gouge you like a tourist. And it gets tiring, and they just drive me away. Because there has to be a difference between the tourist crowd and the people that live here. Anyway, enough of the conversation on that. On to the next Whopper. Alright, so I'm going to give you a pro travel tip for those of you that are still brave enough to be traveling. Here goes. I'm going to get started. So there's 3 things. The first thing is when you say, well, Frank and Angie, how are you guys still running around? How do you do this? You're in the tropics. It's like noon, isn't it, Angie? Yeah. It's like noon. We're out in the middle of a hot day. How do you do such things? Well, we're not trying to be, like those people that either don't know any better or just rebellious. They go out into the desert with no water and no shovel and no nothing. They think they got their cell phone, and then they get out there and the cell phone doesn't work. The car gets stuck in a hole. They got no water and they die. We're not like that. We're prepared, so I'm going to help you be prepared. And the first thing is, we don't go out in the middle of the day. When you're in the tropics, when we were over there in Panama City, and we were just starting out being in the tropics, being that when you're abroad, you're on foot. That's the difference. In the North American zone, you're going to be in the car. It's going to have air conditioning. When you're on foot, that totally changes. And your needs are going to be way different when you're on foot. And so when we were walking around there in the old section of Panama City, and we were headed into an area to go walk around, even the tourism personnel would say things like, "Are you sure you have enough water with you? It's the middle of the day. It's hot. Are you sure you have enough liquids?" Because they know that foreigners they're just likely to venture into something and not understand what they're getting into. So I'm going to help you out. The first step is that we don't go out in the middle of the day. So what are you doing out? But, and this is why they have the siesta time, because the locals know better. And generally speaking, you want to avoid being out in the middle of the day on foot. And so we do the same thing. We got stuff to do. We wait for a cloudy day, rainy day, or first thing in the morning. And we don't go out after dark, so forget that. But anyway, well, what happens if you have to do something? Like today, we have to do something, and we can't put it off. So take plenty of liquids. I'm still in civilization after all. But the second thing is the sombrillo, the sun umbrella. Got to have a sun umbrella if you're going out in the tropics in the middle of the day. Number 2. And number 3, it's a trick up my sleeve that I learned, that I came up with on my own in order to survive and actually thrive in the tropics. And it's a little thing that I do that most people probably don't do, or maybe even won't do. But I do it because it helps me. So what I do is I do a wet t-shirt. I literally, if I ever go out anywhere near the midday, I always put my t-shirt, I don't know if you can tell, but it is wet. And women won't be able to do it, or if you do, you'll want to make sure that you test it out in your own home before you go out in order to avoid more problems than you're trying to avoid. So yeah, that's how I do it. I was talking to some expats here that a lot of them are Canadians, and a lot of them cannot handle this season. This is the off season, which is summer, and it's really hot and humid, and they go home. And so they're like, he's like telling me, well, you know, the other expats, they go home this season, they can't handle it. It was kind of like going, you're here, yeah, I'm here, I'm walking around, I'm talking to you. Most of them can't handle it, it's too hot. So that's how I do it, the wet t-shirt trick.
You're walking pretty fast. That's gonna make you hotter.
You know, we've got a pretty good pace here going on with our walk. So so we're not being turtles, and we're not really all that far away, you know, from civilization in case we need a restroom or something like that. So we're all set, we're going to do it, and we're still really hot when we get back, but we're glad when we get back to freshen up. It's like a built-in air conditioner. The t-shirt, actually, every little puff of breeze, I feel it, and it cools me down because the t-shirt's wet. And you know, not for the faint of heart, not for the timid. You can't worry about what people will think. Foreigners aren't supposed to have their act together completely. I've been doing this for many years. I didn't just start doing it. It has nothing to do with age. I'm just not that tolerant of super high heat. And I like to be effective. I need to get out here and get some stuff done. So when you see these tourists that are totally unprepared, you'll see them. They'll be walking around with their tank top, no hat, no water, no nothing. They're not gonna last. They're not gonna, you know, you can see it in their face. They're all flushed, their skin's red, and they're suffering, but they're not gonna say anything. So I don't want that for you. So remember rule number one, depending on how fit you already are and your age, number one rule is don't go out in the middle of the day in the tropics to begin with, if you can help it. Thanks for coming to the videos, and have a wonderful day.